June is Audiobook Month. Join Viviana, the Enchantress of Books, and the Audiobook Lovin Series as she celebrates the authors and narrators who bring your favorite stories to life. Not only will this month be packed with exciting guest podcasts full of all things books, but stick around after each episode for some special information about this year's giveaway and more.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be celebrating our 10th year anniversary. And so please welcome to season 10, episode 11 of the 2024 Audiobook Lovin Series. Today, I am chatting with narrator Ryan Lee Dunlap. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you. This
Yeah,
is great. Congratulations on 10 years.
Thank you. It's been fun. I love getting to know you guys better and bringing some of you guys to the forefront and getting to know you guys a little bit better too as individuals and human beings, which is all part of the game, as far as listening to you guys do the work. But I'm excited. So we're going to start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating and how you got started.
Sure. So I've been narrating since COVID. I live in New York City. I moved here when I was in my 20s from North Carolina, where I'm originally from. I moved up here to play in bands. I was a band guy, did that for a while. And then I took an acting class and enjoyed it, took another one, started getting acting coaching. I was living here bartending, just kind of having fun. So I figured I would learn how to do some acting, get into it. And it was progressing pretty well. I had a commercial agent. I was like, oh yeah, commercials. That's kind of where I want to get into, as an on-camera actor. And I kind of had my first big commercial booked, like a national commercial. It was going to be on all the TV screens at international airports, like the big screen billboard thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was set to shoot the end of March 2020. So that all got canceled, and it was lockdown. My bar was closed. I had a lot of time, and I had always kind of thought about voiceover in general, both commercial and audiobooks, but having that time, I would, from day one, I was one of those people that was like, this is going to go longer than 2 weeks. I was like, this is going to be a long time. So I was like, I'm going straight into this. It made me sane over the months of lockdown. It gave me a purpose. It was great. I just took a lot of online classes and built my booth and all that stuff, which was a little bit easier because I had a recording background, but so yeah, got into that. Now, audiobooks, I have been an audiobook consumer since books on tape. Since I was little. I loved them because I didn't really like to read with my eyes, ADHD. So, huge fan of those. That was one of the reasons I wanted to get into it. And then just kind of started from there. That's how it got started. And kept getting, coaching here and there, improving. Moved a couple times, built a couple more booths. And then, pretty early on in my audiobook recording, I got booked for romance. And I will be completely honest, I had never read a romance novel before starting to narrate them. And which is, I don't know if I even should admit that, but
no, it's okay. Not everybody does.
Yeah. But I quickly fell for the kind of the story arc, and also the fact that for whatever people kind of heard in my voice that they liked me for that kind of role, was me being actually me and not trying to be anything else other than just Ryan, just kind of loud sometimes, a little vulnerable sometimes, and usually a smart ass. Like whatever that was, like romance, especially a lot of rom-coms, and sports romance, especially. I think I have just a sportsy voice. That's what I got, like I don't want to say that's what I got booked for, therefore that's what I like, but it was the world was so open to me at that point. I needed something to narrow my focus a little bit, and I did do other things, and I still do. I love horror. That's another thing I love, um, but this was something where like I felt like I could be the most laid back kind of Ryan that I can be, and it worked. So, and I've like now I'm just totally into it. Like I love, I listen to them on my own. So that's how it got started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, romance allows you to be vampire, musician,
Yes.
bodyguard, fill in the blank. I mean, baker, firefighter, police, anything, right? It's one of those
Sure.
things where you get to play multiple characters. Now, I will say, Miss Amy Booker, who has
Amy.
yes,
Yes.
she writes her rock stars, and I had her on the show last week. Actually, the episode finally aired,
I
and
saw.
yes, and I love her. I'm like, I love you in talking to her, but also her voice. But then when she was telling me about the stories, and I'm like, okay, there, and I was listening to some clips, I'm like, that's Ryan, and I'm like, okay, and she was just like saying how awesome it was to work with you, and the fact that these are singers and you do some singing too. It was just really kind of nice to kind of see that again with romance. You as the character, as the narrator, can be just about anybody, including a
Yeah.
murderer. I mean, there's just so many options.
Totally. That was great fun. I loved working with her because she's great, and also that was my kind of my old life sort of narrating there. I mean, to a lesser degree, but yeah. So that was great, and I got to be each member of the band. The lead singer who has his own girl crazy kind of heartthrob thing, and then the bass player is very quiet and stoic and like, oh, I got a past and I got demons. And then the drummer who's a complete smartass with like a New York accent, like so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was super fun.
yeah. Again, it allows anything from the hockey players and stuff, that which is the cool thing about being voiceover, right? It's behind the camera. There is no camera technically, right?
Right.
And you can be anything and anybody, regardless of what the descriptor of the character is. And it's just one of those things where we get to enjoy in that escapism and like, okay, great. Today I'm gonna play with dragons. Perfect.
Yeah.
you
Today's
know,
gonna be a dragon day.
yeah. It's all in good fun, and it's one of those things. So how has it been for you transitioning from on stage and all that in camera work to behind the curtain as
Okay.
per se?
I'm so happy you asked because I completely went, I didn't do any, I haven't done any on camera since, basically. And what I learned through um, both commercial voiceover, which to me was a little bit even more challenging for the acting part in certain respects than audiobooks, because with an audiobook you have a second to get into it. You have some time to kind of get into the flow of the narrator as a character, whose voice you're speaking from, and then the characters as well. You get all this stuff. Um, with commercials, you have 30 seconds, and you need to come in that way and be there the whole time. So it was both of those sides of it where I feel like I was never actually I don't think I was a good actor on camera, to be quite honest. Like I wasn't getting it. I wasn't getting the it was before I took an improv class. It was before I knew how to improv to make it fresh. Because when I was on camera, I was very buttoned up and like tried to remember my not only my lines but the subtext and all the things I'm supposed to be going through like in the front of my head, and that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to throw that all away And it wasn't until getting behind the mic where I learned how to like do that. And of course, it's a little bit easier because I don't have to think about anything that my face or hands or anything is doing, just my voice. And that allowed me to, and thank goodness I don't have to memorize another thing in my life. That was the worst part. I was so bad at it. Because as soon as I would get into it, I would completely forget what the lines were, you know? So
Yeah, I get it. It's one of those things. I mean, even with this show, I have my questions and script and the intro and the outro there. And if I deviate, I'm like, blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
fuck it up. So, I mean, like, I get
for
it.
sure. So like getting behind a camera, I mean, behind the mic and having everything there so that you can and you know what I still do? I still want to close my freaking eyes when I'm getting into a moment and then but you can't do that because
You lost where you're at.
you lost the script. So, but just being able to focus on being in the moment vocally and probably more, but you know the only thing that gets transmitted is the dialogue. That's when I feel like I did some of my best first did some of my best acting.
Yeah, because it really, I have no idea if you're happy or sad based on your face, right? Or if
Right.
you're, are you really meaning it? If I was watching a play or a movie, I would have that indicator. With
Mm,
audiobooks and VO work, I'm getting everything via your voice box, and
right.
it has to portray those emotions and believable that in the moment you are the vampire or you are the dragon slayer, whatever it is that you're doing,
Mhm.
and really feeling it and making us feel it as listeners. Otherwise we're like, fast forward.
Yeah. No, it does all the heavy lifting, your voice. And yeah, that for whatever reason, that's just what made it click in my head. And now I feel like if I went back to being an on-camera actor, I would get it a little bit more about what it really means to throw it away and be in the moment, spontaneous, improvise, things like that.
Yeah, but then you also would have to people and
Oh,
you
I'm not
gotta
gonna do it. I'm staying in my booth,
yeah,
whatever.
worrying about what the hair looks like.
Exactly.
Now wearing the same t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, peopling. Oh, it's okay. Like I like going to the Orlando Cat Cafe for that reason. I get my coffee and I go hang out with the cats. If that was like my workspace, I'd be okay with
Oh,
that. But it's
nice.
not.
Yeah, you got to get out of the booth.
Yeah.
I was I was telling somebody the other day, like my wife, when she comes home,
Hmm.
she'll literally take me out for a walk. You know, like take me out of bed. Come on, let's go for a walk. Get
Hmm.
out of here.
I love that she does that for you though, because I mean, if you love what you do, right? And that's what they always say. Like I remember being a kid having people say, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And always having the guidance of do something that you love. And I
And
really
you'll
didn't.
never work a day in your life.
Right? Exactly. No, no, no. It's not just a never day. It's like a 90-hour work day.
Yeah.
Because you don't end up remembering that it's work because you enjoy it. But that also means
Yeah,
you're sitting down for how many hours a day, or you're performing and doing things in the booth, and you're going, "Wait, what day is it today?" Um,
exactly. Yeah.
it's like that's why I like having my dogs out and about because they'll come to the French doors that I have for my office that have glass, and they'll just like pop up, and I'm like, "Oh, I got to do something with you." Okay, great, let's
Oh,
go.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I have to make sure that, my kitten is not,
Hmm.
disowning me
Yeah.
for leaving him and stuff like that. It's good. So I'm glad that she takes you out of the environment and gets you stretched out and for a walk and some fresh air.
That's why they're great. That's
Yeah.
why they're great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is I mean, just gonna throw this in there. What does she think about you narrating romance and things like that? Because we all
Oh,
as listeners, we're like, oh, I'm sure your wife is so like, oh my God, right? And
she
most of the
is.
she is.
So well, okay. So she we've always kind of listened to audiobooks, each of us together sometimes we would listen together when we go on trips and but usually she's got what she listens to, I got mine. We have the same Audible account, so like we try to overlap, but she's been getting more into romance as I was getting into it, or a little bit after actually, as when I started really focusing on romance. She's starting to listen to more of them, and you know, first couple, she's like, I don't get it, it's okay, whatever. And then, like, I think 6 months later, she's like, I'm so into this new romance that I'm listening to. It's like, oh my gosh, she'll be like walking around the house with her headphones on and just be like, oh, like just for, just out of the blue, like have some look on her face. And I'm like, what? She's like, oh, this book, it's, whew.
Mm-hmm. But does he listen to your work or no?
She, she, I don't think she has listened to mine yet. Not
Mm-hmm.
because, um, she doesn't want to, but just like, I think she's waiting. I think she wants me to like give her permission to,
Okay.
because I'm, kind of shy about it sometimes with her. But,
It's so cute.
she's actually lately, she's been like, complaining like, why haven't I listened to any of your books, why haven't I listened to any of your books? So i'm gonna have to
To
i'm
go
gonna
through
have
your
to
catalog and
get
see
her
which one.
opinion soon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think sometimes we have this idea of, because the listeners are going, oh my God, I love Ryan's voice, right? And oh, the wife is so lucky. I'm like, listen, as someone that is also married, we don't care. Yeah, they may have the great voice, but the dishes haven't been done yet, or
Yeah.
something didn't get done that was asked of. So I don't care how sexy he fucking
Yeah,
sounds.
that voice that sounds so sexy through your headphones does
Phones.
not sound as sexy, yelling through the bathroom door, or
Yeah, I got
uh
toilet paper. Can you bring me some toilet paper?
bring me a towel. I'm in the shower and I forgot my towel. Can you bring me my towel, please?
No, come get it. But yeah, it's always, for me, it's kind of fascinating to have that dialogue. I swear one day I'm going to have like an episode with the spouses and significant others of the narrators, and just completely say
That
like,
would be fun. That would be
right?
interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
have they ever tried to pull the voice on you? Uh,
Uh-huh. Yep.
mm-hmm.
And how many times do they explode out of their room,
Mm-hmm.
yelling for me to be quiet when I like put a dish down too loudly,
Yes.
like, you
Yes.
messed up my take.
Yeah.
That was the one. That was the perfect take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing too. Like, I'd probably be messing with you on purpose.
Yeah.
Leave little thingies like slow clicks of something. Click, click, click. You're like, what is that? I have no idea what you're talking about. Do you hear? No, I don't hear anything.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you
Uh-huh.
you need to go to the doctor. You're hearing
Mm-hmm. Too
things.
many
Yeah.
earbuds. Yeah, sir. I'm that
That's
friend, and
funny.
so yeah. Well, hey, you gotta have fun, okay? After a while, it
Yeah.
becomes too serious, and you're like, But
You gotta have fun.
mm-hmm.
You gotta yes and each other, as
Yeah.
to go back to the improv.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. How was that for you as far as improv? What made you decide to want to do that?
So I did that at UCB before COVID. It was right before COVID, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life for me at the time. Um, and I loved it. It taught. I mean, I was a bartender, so that was okay. Like, before I was a bartender, I was very introverted. I'm probably still technically introverted, but like, but I still love like just gabbing with people. So like, being at a bar, you as a bartender, you kind of, you're, especially in New York, at your local dive bar that everybody in the neighborhood goes to, you you have a platform, so to speak. Like, you are the director of of the the room, kind of, so people will listen to you, and you're giving them drinks too, so people will listen to whatever you have to say. So like, that kind of, as an introverted person who like wasn't ever sure that anyone was interested in what I had to say, gave me kind of the openness and permission to just be like, I can say whatever I want to, and these people are going to listen. So I got to kind of just come out of my shell. This was over 13 years of bartending. Um, come out of my shell and just realized how much I enjoy just random meaningless conversation with people. And so doing improv, which was toward the end of my bartending career, it was great because it was like you can't shut out. You have to always be listening, always present. Yeah, it may it sound first it's kind of exhausting because you feel like your mind's always racing, but then it's like you're you're just yeah, you're always open. So like I don't know what it was with me, but I would kind of shut down and be like, oh, okay, and kind of zone off. Like I'm a daydreamer. I'll just start daydreaming about something. Can't do that. Got to be, present in the moment. And so I did it, and and some of the exercises that you do are like amazing. Like I don't know what it's called, but there's the one where like everybody is in a circle, right? And it starts with one person, and the person, say, all the way to the right, or one part of the circle, and the person to their right, they just look at each other and like count to three and say the first thing that comes to their mind. And then the next two people, and it'll be two different things, right? And then the next two people with the other person that was there included, so it kind of moves along the circle. Those two people say the first thing that comes to their mind when they think about there's a word at the beginning. Sorry, I forgot. First thing that they think of when they think of that word. And basically what happens is before you get to the end of the circle, or eventually, people say the same thing. Like people's minds start to literally meld together, and that you're thinking as a group. And that's so crazy to watch happen in real life when you've never seen it before. It's awesome. Um,
Yeah, kind of like that telephone game where you start.
yeah, kind of like telephone. Kind of like reverse telephone. I think it might have been called something telephone. Anyway, um, but so we did our after the class, we did our end of the class show at the UCB theater, that every class does, and it was great. It was a hit. There were people laughing, and they were laughing about shit we just came up with right there, and that I'd seen improv before,
Hmm.
but I always thought like those people are just another level of smart and funny, but actually going through the process and seeing how it's done, it's like everybody should do this.
I was just about to say it kind of sounds almost like they always say like you should always take like not a, like this like public speaking classes when you have the
Hmm.
opportunity. That improv is something too that I've heard that has helped
Definitely.
many people a little bit like step away from their introvertedness or finding that in the moment mindset.
100%.
Yeah.
Like I literally, if I could go back and tell my younger self, especially before I started trying to be an actor, go do improv first. Like just throw yourself into that deep end. And it is scary at the beginning, but once you stop worrying about looking silly,
Hmm.
you don't care anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it becomes more fun. I mean, at this point, we're also going, when was the last time I didn't look silly?
Yeah,
Uh, doing something, you know. Uh,
exactly.
yeah. But that's definitely something I've seen one or two improv shows, and it's always been fascinating. The quick on your feet, and still be entertaining, and the engagement. So there's just so many different factors to it.
Yeah,
And bringing that also into it in the booth where you're having to do multiple characters at once in the same scene and trying to keep focus on who's feeling what and who's saying what with what accent, and you're going, yo.
yeah, totally.
Hmm. You had kind of brought up the accent work before in
Mhm.
with Amy Booker stuff. What are some of your favorite accents to perform?
Oh, Southern first. That's the one that I can do a whole book, as the narrator as a Southern accent. And I live in New York, so I can get like a New York accent going for a full book narration as well. But but just for characters, um, it's funny. I spent some time in England going to school. Like I did a semester abroad in England, and I can do a really good, or I can do a pretty good Irish, Scottish, Cockney English, um, and Australian, or New Zealand. I tend to want to go towards New Zealand because Flight of the Conchords, but um,
I love that show.
but I cannot get my head around the I do. I want to preface this. I work very hard at it, but it doesn't come as naturally to me to do just the straight up English accent, like the normal English accent, not the posh. Posh I can do too, because that's more caricature-y. And you know, the best advice I ever got about accents, which I think is the best advice, is when you're trying to do an accent, you pick one person. You pick one person and you have them in your head. One person who speaks that accent, maybe an actor, maybe a person you know, whatever. But you imitate that person. Maybe imitate isn't the right word, but you think about that person, not just a general, you know, every upper crust English accent, but you got to think of, all right, I want to do the actor that plays Diana in the new Crown, you know, series. I want to do her accent. And that gets me the farthest, because that gets you into those little things that you can't, yeah, you know, that those little ticks almost, or lilts that you don't, it's hard to like put them together consciously, but when you're unconsciously just trying to emulate a specific person, you pick up their ticks and you pick up their whatever, and it sounds a little more real.
Yeah.
I
And
think.
cadence sometimes has a lot to do with it too. How they're
Sure.
speaking and the accents is, yeah, but I've heard that too before from others about selecting the one person,
Yeah.
and that's your example of what that accent is, what you want to do. Because it's true. I mean, how many times when we go, you know, British accent, and we go, okay, but where?
Yeah.
Where in England? And also who? Because it
Yeah.
depends. And the same thing, like when people go Scottish, and I'm going, okay, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
But it's same thing with Southern, because you know, Savannah, Georgia is a lot different than you know, North Carolina and
Sure.
Texas and things like that, and all sorts of different, you know, different nuances. And it could be as simple as how they said the one word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My book I did a few months ago that was so close to home was it was called When I Come Around by Karen Gray, and I also did the like accompanying novella I'll Stand By You. It's all they were very specific. They wanted North Carolina coastal accent, and this is where I spent every summer since I was, you know, born. So, and not only that, but it's the 90s.
Oh,
And I grew up in the 90s. So
yeah.
like it was like, okay, I got this. But I still like went, and I actually happened, it was funny. I actually was at home in North Carolina when I was prepping for the book. I was visiting, and I just went and like talked to my mom's neighbors for a while, you know, and like was getting just this
Reacclimated.
little like, yeah, like once I'm there for a couple days it starts coming back out anyway. So but yeah,
Yeah.
that was one where I spent more time to try to, because they wanted it very specific, and I spent more time because like this is something I can definitely do almost perfectly, because if I put my mind to it, because yeah, because it's it comes easy. I don't have to think about it as much once
Yeah.
I get my head in that.
And it's funny too, because what we also hear and think is what we're hearing and thinking and listening is not the same sometimes. And when you, I mean, you were that Karen was very specific about that accent, you know,
Yeah.
exactly where and things. And then you'll always get someone that's like, that's not how it sounds. And I'm like, is it really though? Um,
Yeah.
because there's always someone that's like, that's not how a British accent goes. I'm like, really? Because the narrator's British. So, oh
Ooh.
yeah, that's happened twice with one British and one Irish with their relatively, you know, native accents. And
Ooh.
the review was like, that's not Irish. I'm like, well, considering he's from Ireland and he is born and raised there. Yeah. You're just
Well, that's a
thinking of, you know, the reviewer is probably thinking Lucky Charms.
I'm thinking Lucky Yeah.
You
That's a
know?
good clapback, dude.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
Like
like,
really? Really?
mm-hmm,
They don't sound Irish? Because
mm-hmm.
they're Irish.
They're Irish. Those are also kind of fun to have that dialogue sometimes when you're going, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Sit down.
Hmm.
But everyone is a critic. But it's the same thing like when we pronounce certain words and there's certain streets and certain cities where you know that you're not from around there if you're mispronouncing it.
Right, right,
And
right.
so sometimes that happens too, where we're like, yeah, that book's no, did they not get the pickup for that one or things like that?
Yeah.
But it's funny. I mean, I love a good accent, and as long as it's not characterized
Yeah.
because or stereotypical either, because that's not good either.
Another thing I think helps me with accents, especially if it's a challenging accent, is to, and this is another thing that people will probably say about when you're using an accent, is not to have the accent be the central thing of the character, because they're a whole person with an accent on top of them. So I would take that, um, mentally while I'm trying to do these lines in this accent and be like, well, when someone's out of breath and they've just run into a scene and they're like, so and so's falling off a bridge, it's like there's a lot of like things that you can focus on that are not specifically accent related that are very important for that scene that can blend it a little bit, like, shade the edges where you tell there's an accent there, but the person is much more focused on telling them what they have to tell them or whatever the dialogue is than just making sure their accent comes through. So that's a way to kind of, I don't want to say cover up, but like shade it a little bit.
Well, you just want enough of it for me to go, okay, British,
Right, right.
or fill in the blank and just make sure that that's consistent because consistency and stamina is important, that it's maintained. Whereas other times, I've do know there's some people that are so focused on the accent that's the acting slips or something isn't done there or they're so hyper fixated on that. And I'm like, yeah, but you missed the point where they were fucking crying.
Yeah. Like they said, she said through sobs, and they're just like, blah, blah, blah.
I know. But again, there's always going to be someone that's like, yeah, that's not enough or too much. So it's always like that. You want to give that hint of it and go, oh, okay. Because
sure.
I mean, if we were to really talk to someone that's Scottish or Irish, not the sexiest when they're in the midst of it all, right? And
Yeah.
then sometimes you're going, can you slow down? Because I don't understand exactly what you're saying.
Oh, it's been super helpful with accents too, is TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
I have okay, I'll tell you my whole TikTok story. I don't know if this is even something I should repeat. I didn't do anything wrong, but I have been permanently banned twice from TikTok.
Twice? Oh my God.
So, and my first account, I posted 2 videos, and they're up on my Instagram right now. You can go watch them. They are of me narrating a book I was hired to narrate. When I Come Around was one of them. And the other one was narrating another book I was hired to narrate. And I received no warnings. It was a new account, so these were my first 2 videos. And I was interacting with people, and I was like, this is great. I'm back. I'm doing the TikTok, book talk, audiobook narrator thing. Awesome. And I just wake up one morning to find out that my account has been permanently banned, as in my email address too, permanently banned, because of what was it? Authenticity and integrity policy? Multiple violations of their authenticity and integrity policy, which I guess means that they thought it was a bot.
That's just weird.
And nobody else like has. I ask people all the time because I'm like, tell me what's going on. Why I can't be on TikTok for some reason. So that happened once, and then I was like, okay, you know what? I was switching back and forth between accounts on my phone because I have my like lurker account. I say lurker. It's just my like things I want to view that are not, they're maybe audiobook related, may not be my entertainment at TikTok. Don't post anything. That's my account where I have a folder there regarding accents, because that's the one I'm on all the time, just looking at stuff, and that's where I keep a folder of accents. So a creator, there's a couple good creators with a good Scottish accents, for example, that I
Mm-hmm.
will put their videos in there, so I can go to their page, and whenever I'm doing a Scottish, and just listen to them talk and just absorb it. So I was thinking it was because I was switching between accounts.
Yeah.
So I made another account
You're like, let's
with
try
my
this
name,
again.
different email address,
Mm-hmm.
and that one, same thing happened. Same thing happened. So
Hmm.
now I'm like, all right.
You're done.
And I don't know if it's because like the videos I posted had sound that I edited in because, that's I wanted to use the audio from my mic and my nice setup, for the audio. And I wonder if that was it because it's like an edited video, not like a live recorded on TikTok.
No, because I do edited videos. There's so
That's
many
what, yeah.
different factors to it. Who knows? The thing is, though, I mean, technically it's going to get banned anyway, so no loss on your end in that case. But
You
it
think?
I
You think it's
think
gonna go? Yeah.
I think it is, and I think it's a good thing. One of those where that's while I understand the love of social media and it's been great to connecting with people and stuff like that, there's also been a lot of negativity and bad behavior heavier happening within even book talk,
Oh
and
yeah,
also
I've
and
seen
also
some of
what
that.
we
Yeah.
defined as an influencer, right, and how that goes about it and things like that. So I think there's just a lot of things that are not regulated, and I'm not saying that it needs to be. I'm like, there's a reason why it should be 18 and over, for an example, for certain things
Definitely.
and stuff like that. So who knows? Honestly, it's. I remember. You remember MySpace?
I was on MySpace.
I
That was my
know.
first. That was my actually Friendster was my first.
Oh, see, I got on the cuffs of MySpace, but that was HTMLing that shit nicely,
Oh
right?
yeah, you had that.
Yeah.
You were one of those people
Well, I like
that knew
aesthetics.
all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a learner, so I'm like, okay, what is this HTML shit? Oh, it makes the things prettier. Yay! Boom, learning and stuff like that. And then I don't even remember exactly how it came and went bye bye on it, but then
yeah,
Facebook comes into play, and so there's been these things where it keeps changing and modifying, and we have a new one, and then the end of Facebook, and then three other new platforms pop up that don't ever survive, and
sure,
then TikTok and the Twitter, and then that one was a new one. It's still around, even though it's been renamed and branded, but it's still there. It's like a roach. It comes and hides, and then Instagram. Instagram's not gonna last, and then boom, we're still here. So we don't know. And
yeah.
this is where I've always have this dialogue with you guys as narrators and even authors. Like, social media is your tool, not your priority and not your main focus.
Oh,
Really, you know
thank
what I
you,
mean? Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
a
Okay,
tool, it's a resource. Your website needs to be up and running, because if I need to cast you, don't make me hunt for you.
yeah,
And if I
exactly.
want to know what your latest book was that I may have missed, I am not going to go on the TikTok app and go scroll, 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 and hope that I'm going to find it. I'm going to go to your fucking website, and if it's not
Sure.
up to date, uh, it's
Note to
nope
self: get
self.
my website up to date.
Well, it's
It's
something.
semi up to date.
Yeah, yours is pretty good. Yours is pretty good. It's just one of those things where that stays. That's your house, right? That's your home.
Absolutely.
And that
Yeah.
is where if you're lost, or if I'm trying to find something, I should be able to go to that one place and find everything. Your links to the books, who is what's coming up next, so I can add it to my calendar. Because I do have one of those, and where your
Uh-huh.
socials are. And your socials are supposed to be that social. And because you never know, tomorrow, like MySpace, it could be
Yeah.
gone. And even though technically it came back, I can't get into my account. So what's the point? Um
Dude, yeah, there
yeah.
if it does get banned, there will be a tiny little piece of me being like, "Yeah, fuck you, TikTok. That's what you get. Ban me. I'm gonna
Vindicated.
ban you."
Yeah. Vindication. Evil laugh inserts.
Vindication.
Yeah. Hey, it's all these things. I mean, we see
Yeah.
it, and I'm like, and people are that also like, why aren't my things getting views? And I'm like, well, how much time do you have? Because it's not you. There's so
Yeah.
many different other factors. So as long as it's a tool that you're using and you're just getting yourself out there for CEO purposes, great. But how's the stuff in your website? And if for authors, newsletters, that's your next big thing. Even
Yeah.
narrators are now starting to do newsletters, and you guys are
Oh
like, well,
wow.
what do I post? I'm like, a month in review. Send this shit out once a month at the end of the month or the beginning of the next one, and just say, hey, these have been my latest releases, and this is what is out up for available for pre-order. Done.
Nice.
Yeah. It's all those
Well,
fun things.
thank you for that because I mean, I'm serious. I was getting some serious like stress, FOMO, like why can't I, because
It's not you, it's them.
a lot of TikTok, yeah, and being live on TikTok as a
Yeah.
narrator is great. I have a very accomplished, much larger than me narrator that I'm working on my next book with. Can I drop names or what?
Sure. Well, as long as your
Stephanie.
NDA doesn't make you not do it.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I think it'll be out.
When
Well,
is it? Let me
it's,
see.
it's I think it'll probably be out. I'm
Yeah.
working on it right now with Stephanie Nemeth Parker.
I love her. She's a
And
sweetheart.
yeah, and she had just done a dual live with Neil, I forgot his last name.
Neil
Um
Thorman,
maybe
maybe? Yeah.
last week, and I watched it and we were gonna do, and it was amazing. It was both of them doing the duet, off each other, and we were gonna do that. And then she was like, "Wait, you have to." I was like, "Well, my TikTok is got deleted. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'll just start up another one." She's like, "No, you have to have 1,000 followers," which I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize, to go live. And it's like, well, I can't do that now. I
But
can't
but
have that, like,
but Instagram allows you to do lives.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's what we're gonna end up doing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. But there's a will, there's a way.
yeah, yeah. I definitely want to still do it. With Shiloh James, amazing narrator. She was the first person I did a duet. We did duet together, similarly, not recording it, but just, well, we did sort of record it, screen record it, but just doing the duet, the record with each other through through Instagram chat, and that was great. That was great to like have a person to play off of, you know?
Yeah. Prior to COVID, that's how anytime that it was a duet narration or multicast, everyone would
Oh
get
yeah.
flown over to, the
Oh
studio. And
wow.
it was like it was a project manager's worst nightmare.
I bet.
In the sense of like, okay, well, this is a scene and we're gonna need you two, three. You can go out to lunch, but do not go further out than 30 minutes because you're next. I mean, all that strategicness, like stuff that I had to do. And it was great, but it was also one of those things where I'm also going like, y'all are actors. I get it, the whole playing off each other,
Uh-huh.
but it's a lot more expensive. Just no,
Yeah.
earn your acting chops here, showcase them.
Yeah.
And so
Better bring it.
bring it. Yeah, I'll call you out on it. But yeah, with Instagram, you guys can do lives, play off each other. It's not just solely TikTok. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
There is and it's one of those things like we love it. We love seeing you guys work on it, but we're also kind of like, and there's the blooper. Perfect.
Yeah.
We love a good blooper, things like that. But yeah, so don't fret it, don't stress it. It's not worth
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Because I was.
Yeah, no. Trust me, I would much rather you being recording than stressing and trying to figure out camera angles and lighting and stuff to do a 5-10 second video.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah. But speaking about all that fun stressing stuff, I'm gonna have a couple of questions here to ask you, see how stressed out you're gonna be after this.
Okay.
Does love at first sight exist?
Okay. I'm gonna pick apart the definition of the word sight. Love at first sight, in my opinion, in my experience with my wife, was something I would categorize in my life, juxtaposed to all the other relationships I had up until then, as love at first sight. But it was more like love at first day spent with her, talking to her, once I got to know her, it was instantaneous. I have definitely, as lots of people probably have, experienced what I thought was love at first sight when I first just laid eyes on someone and was like, they're perfect. And guess what? 9.999 times out of 10, they are not. They are not who you thought they were. They are, or you aren't who you thought you were yet. And you hadn't grown into the type of person that would work for that person, all these variables. So the spirit of love at first sight, I do believe, but it involves timing. It involves you being at the right place in your life and them being at the right place in theirs. Funny story about when I met my wife, is we had met. We had a mutual friend. Her best friend was one of my good friends, and our friend, would always bring her by the bar where I worked, and we were both sort of became single at the same time. And at that I asked her out on a date, and that date was the first sight. It was just from that moment on, I didn't want to leave her house. I wanted to just keep talking.
Aw.
But the funny thing is, later on, a little later, she's like, we met before, right? And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, we met like a few years ago. You were wasted, and I didn't remember it. She was like, you were sweet, you were like, whatever, but you were, she was like, there was no way I was not gonna. I was not. We were not gonna be anything at that point. And I had no recollection of that whatsoever. So that
Might be a good thing.
That
You
was
never know.
embarrassing. But
Oh,
yeah.
goodness. Oh, I tend to love those stories like that.
So yeah, I think
Mhm.
it involves a lot of factors other than just your eyeballs. But yeah, I do believe in love at first sight.
Okay. Who would narrate an audiobook memoir about your life?
Who would narrate? Gosh, that is a tough one. I'm going to say, ooh, all right. There is one of my favorite audiobooks called, and I forgot the last name of it's called My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, who is he's a horror science fiction kind of writer. He's a Native person, Native American, and but he's so 80s, 90s pop culture. Like, he grew up in it, so it's in there with his perspective. And okay. So the person that narrated this audiobook, My Heart is a Chainsaw, is an actor, but her name is Kara Gee, and she's you may know her if you know the show The Expanse. That sci-fi show.
Okay, I've heard of it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, she's an actor in that. She's Canadian, indigenous background as well, but she is freaking hilarious in this book. So the main character of this book is a young girl, in a small town, like, dealing with this typical, like, awful stuff that a young girl deals with, but also some supernatural events that are happening. And just she's not like she's sort of one of those narrators that's like, like an on-screen Hollywood actor who also does books. And a lot of those, sometimes they're good, but sometimes they're not. And this is one of my favorite narrations, because she's like able to bring humor into moments that I'm not sure would have been humorous on paper. And I feel like that's sort of like my life sometimes. When I look back on it, it's like there are moments that, like, when I say them out loud, it's like, oh wow. but at the time it's just like, whatever, that's just life. But so yeah, her ability to take, like, just a normal sentence and, like, shine the light of absurdity on it,
Yeah.
it is what I would love to hear in my life, because I would love to hear some of the things that I haven't gone back and thought about and remembered and said out loud, like things that you maybe forgot. Like I would want her telling them to me.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
But highly recommend that audiobook I'm sure the book's good too, but it is, but um her performance in that is my favorite.
Great. I'm adding it to the list. If someone was to summon you via cauldron, what 3 ingredients or things would they have to have / use?
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
cauldron.
Yes.
I'm gonna say, oh gosh, all right, how do I keep this semi PG related? Okay, well, since this is pretty much my life now, I'm gonna say, first you will need cable of mic. You're gonna have to plug this guy in if you wanna get to him. He's gotta have a way to get in there. He's gotta have an outlet. Then I would say the next thing would be a shirt of a loud nature. So I like to wear like crazy floral print shirts with lots of designs on them. And I have a chest tattoo that, like, I sat through a lot before, so I like to unbutton it a little bit and kind of show it off. I got it. I'm not gonna,
Mm-hmm.
So shirt of a certain color. Shirt of a feather.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing is gonna be a stick of butter. Like butter. I was gonna ask you about your culinary degree because I love to cook. It's kind of what I do. I'm the cook. I cook all the meals in our house. And butter is one of the things I had to recently give up. I didn't have to give it up, but like I chose to give it up to like get my cholesterol down because my whole family just has high cholesterol from the South.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when I smell butter like being cooked or something cooked in butter, like kind of like the like Looney Tunes cartoon where the
Oh yeah,
smell like
floating.
hooks them underneath the nostrils and drags them through the air to wherever they're
Mm-hmm.
going.
Yep.
That's me. That's me.
Okay.
That and onions. You
Yeah.
just fry some onions and everybody in the room's like, smells great in here.
Right? That is true. That is true. Okay, well, good news. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to summon someone.
It's like, okay, Ryan, Mr. Stick of Butter.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'm like, all right, well, he said butter. So it's all the good things. It's always funny to me, it's like what exactly you would want in something like what would be you and essentially. So that's always a good question to ask. I always have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I always sometimes I'm like, do you have a call? I go, yeah, I have several cauldrons. So
Yeah, I have a NSFW cauldron for sure.
yeah. So one of the things that we do on for the Patreons is a game where I make you guys choose between 2 things because I always love to torture you. Would you rather? And one of the question is, would you rather tell everyone your guilty pleasures or never partake in those guilty pleasures ever again? And that's it. So usually everybody was, I want to say 99.999 people say, yeah, I'll just tell everybody. But we leave it at that because it's that was not part of the question. And then I've always kind of played around with, don't worry, next time you come on the show, we'll talk about those guilty pleasures. And then they have a second when they're going, but I never really bring it up again because we just are talking about everything else. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start bringing this up again. And so I was kind of curious, what are some of your guilty pleasures?
All right. This somewhat ties in with the stick of butter. But,
Yeah.
First of all, yes, of course, I'm not going to deny myself. I will tell the world before I will deny myself, you know. Barbecue is number one. Another one of those things where like, okay, Ryan, you're not in your 20s anymore. You're not in your 30s anymore. You can't eat barbecue the way you used to. I'm from North Carolina, grew up on that. Um it was all pork. North Carolina has a very distinct barbecue
Yes.
geography. You
Yes,
have
it does.
Eastern North Carolina barbecue, which is pulled pork that's with a vinegar-based sauce, so it's very tangy. And then you have Western North Carolina, which is the more tomato-based sauce, um, more kind of closer to what the rest of the country would think of when they think of barbecue or barbecue sauce. I was an Eastern North Carolina girl. It was great, man. But can't do it forever, I guess. I don't know. Um, and I go to the gym like a lot. Like I'm a kind
Yeah.
of a gym guy. That's
Well,
what I
a
get
lot
out
of
to
people
do.
think that cholesterol is 100% correlated to your exercise levels and your
Mm,
health and stuff like that, and it really isn't. There's people that
no,
are fit to the guilt, like perfection,
exactly.
and they have high cholesterol. It's genetics, folks. Okay,
100%. Yep.
So, but yeah,
So yeah, I'm a
okay.
victim of that. But but yeah, barbecue
Barbecue.
is oh, it's the best. Barbecue and fried food, fried anything. It's just awesome. But
Yeah. And fried food has a bad rap. The reality is, if you actually have your oil at the right temperature, it
really,
sears, yes, it sears the food. And so it's not really greasy. The reason why food that is fried is greasy is because you're making it sit there for longer than it needs to because your oil is not at the right temperature.
huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I believe that. You may
And
have just changed my life again. I don't
maybe,
know.
yes. So there's that. It's all types of ingredients, but also air frying. While I know sometimes you're like, oh, the flavor of the oil. Yes, but that's the other thing too. You're not supposed to be having the whole flavor of the oil. So
Yeah,
if the air fryers nowadays are really good at mimicking that fried side of the air fryer. And that
sure.
can also work out for you as well. So
Nice.
yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
And the second thing, oh my gosh. Okay, this is slightly embarrassing, but um at the end of audiobooks, especially romance audiobooks,
Mm-hmm.
especially sweet ones and sportsy ones and small towns and coming of age, whatever. If you hear a character who's like trying not to cry at the end of the book, that's because I am actively crying in the booth at the end during the touching moment because it got me. It got me, and I'm like, I'm gonna use this. I'm not gonna like not use it, you know? So I will be like literally, I know I'll kind of have to sort of keep it together so I don't sound snotty,
Right.
but yeah, no, most of my audiobooks towards the end, I'm like literally crying.
Oh.
Not, but
It's not the ugly cry where you're going, "What are you saying?"
yeah,
But because that's the other thing too. You're like, "You stop mumbling, wipe the tears." I
like
can't understand you. It's that whole like, quiet emotion internally, tear kind of falling, right? I'm
yeah.
assuming, yeah.
Hey Ryan, we got some pickups for you. It's the whole last chapter. It sounds like you're blowing your nose.
There he
Yeah,
goes again, crying on the mic.
no, but yeah, I mean, it feels good too, because I feel like you're really, if you control it the right way, you're there. You're where the character wants to be or needs to be, you know.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's appreciated. A good cry is also good too, but also it means that the authors did a job if that was that kind of emotion.
They did,
Yeah.
and they did because I'm not weepy for character A and character B. I'm weepy because character A sounds exactly like my dad or my
Mm-hmm.
mom or whatever, like whatever in my life that I can map it onto.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
When you
that's
can associate it with something, it's like, oh God, gut
hmm
wrenching. Mm-hmm.
and that's them doing a great job writing that
Yeah.
scene and those characters.
Good. Yeah. Those are great moments too where you can relate and empathize, but also like, oh yeah, I went through that crap.
Yeah.
He's probably handling it significantly better than I did. Or my favorite, wasn't that bad, was I then, huh? Because they're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Those are good. Those are good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So the next segment that I have is because sometimes you guys, as my guests, go rogue. And all of a sudden we'll flip the script and start asking me questions, similar to how you were about to ask about the culinary or something, because something pops up.
Go.
And,
I want to
right? And I'm like,
hear.
yeah, no, this is not about me, shows. But I relent and I said, you know what? We're just gonna add it in and have it be like, if you guys can ask me anything, go ahead. This is your time. This is the second I'm giving you to ask me anything. So
I want to hear about the culinary degree. If
uh
you want to talk about
yeah,
it. If
no,
you
I
don't
love it. It's I'm a learner.
Uh-huh.
And I love, so this is where photography classes were taken and psychology classes. And
Sweet.
I was, born and raised in Miami and realized that I love cooking for
Mhm.
people and having parties and having all that stuff. And then I think there was a commercial or something for Orlando Culinary Academy, like Cordon Bleu. And I'm like,
Ah.
hmm, okay. Had the conversation with the hubby about moving mid states, 4 hours away from my mother at the time. She was
Oh.
not happy.
Mhm.
But then kind of, did it and then, did all the classes. And I was the first one to get cut in my class, by the way, with a peeler. Did not live that down
Oh,
for
cut like you
yeah,
actually
like I
cut.
cut like
Yeah.
blood cut with a peeler. I was like so embarrassed. But ended up being their top students, and graduated with honors and their
Awesome.
valedictorian. And
Nice.
yes, but the amount of stuff that you learn, I mean, from filleting the fish to cutting up the meats to, you know, learning patience and allowing that bread to fucking rise on its own and don't
Ooh.
don't touch the oven when
Uh-huh.
it's in when the dessert's in there, because that's the other thing too. For my degree, it was all of it. So the savory and the baking side. And realizing that baking for me was very nice and relaxing, even though there was a lot of math involved in
Yeah.
conversions, but it was just fun to be able to do things, and the amount of food that one brought home, Jesus.
Ooh. I
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah, you would have been in heaven if you're a foodie. My neighbors were
Yes.
in heaven when I was bringing stuff home, because we would bake not one loaf of bread, we would bake dozens of loaves of breads. And
Oh my
sometimes, yeah, and
God.
sometimes we had people that were like, were gluten intolerant, so they're like, I'm not bringing this home. Who wants it? I'm like, no. Um, my when I came down to making sushi, my neighbor was in heaven. I don't eat sushi, neither does my husband. So it was like I would bring stuff home for them and things like that. So yeah, it was a
Wow.
fun time. Got dinged on a lot of things because I'm a 5-year-old when it comes down to foods, and texture is huge.
Yeah.
So things like I don't like mayonnaise and I don't like hollandaise sauce. Ugh,
Yeah.
and I had to make it, and the chef's like, how do you know that you did it the right way? I'm like, because I know how to follow instructions. I was a smart ass. Um,
Ooh.
One day I was like, because I made it, that's why. And they're like, I'm like, I'm sorry, chef. But you learn the buddy system, and where you're like, you have someone that you trust that's not going to try
Mhm.
to fuck you over in class, and say, okay, listen, I follow the instructions. I think this is good. What do you think? And then they're like, it needs a little bit. I'm like, okay, great. And then just the dash,
Yeah.
because I'm like not sticking that white gunk in my mouth.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, sorry. And things like that. So it was fun. I love it. And the good thing is I can be employed no matter where in the world I move,
Yeah.
because it's a skill set. If I'm hanging out at your house or I'm crashing, you want me to be the girl that crashes at your house. Because I will cook for you and earn
Oh
her
my
keep,
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And it's one of those, and I love it. As for me, it's a love language. So if I know that you're coming over, and let's say you and your wife, and you have a specific dish, but your wife has something else that is also a favorite of hers, that is not what I will cook separately for the two of you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things that it's just I love it. It's just fun. I just have to
I,
make sure stuff is clean because then I won't cook otherwise.
yeah, yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Hmm.
like when I as a bartender, I was best friends with all the chefs in the area because they all hung out at the bar after work, and it was a trade-off. They would come and get free drinks from me, and I would go and get free. Go there on a date and get styled out at their restaurant, and and it was great because I'd talk to them about cooking, and if I'm like, why does my turkey in the oven always tastes like shit? And they're like, well, don't, basically leave the cavity open, or, don't stuff it because you're not letting airflow. They would give me all these tips and tricks. Why isn't my fish always sticking to the pan? Um, and I loved that, and I loved cooking. And I thought, and several of them were like, yo, if you want to come by the kitchen and like start working, like just doing prep, if that's a thing you want to get into. And I was like, yeah, maybe I do. And then I was like, but you're here every night drinking. Like, and I knew a bit about the lifestyle at that point, but the more I learned, I was like, I just don't think I could do it. I
Yeah.
just don't think I could the the wherewithal to have everything, million things going at once in the kitchen, and I spared them having to tell
Oh
me I
yeah.
wasn't going to be good at that.
When that one table wants to have their steak 15 different ways.
Ah,
Uh,
yeah,
you know, or that one person that is allergic to something. And so you have to do everything separately, individually. So their things are not getting cross contaminated. It's a lot.
dude. Yeah, and
It's
like
a
they'll
lot.
die if you
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah, right. Or worse, they
or
don't
get
die and
sick.
they get sue you and have
Ugh,
you. Ugh, you know. So
yeah,
it's a lot of balls up in the air, but that's stuff something too it can be something that is also very pleasing.
I'm sure.
And
Yeah,
where
no,
the hustle and bustle doesn't necessarily need to be there. There's a lot of people that graduated and did their own places, or they worked for their parents. Some did private chefing, where like they'll go and spend the next 3 months at the beach, May, June,
oh
July, and
wow,
August at the beach because everybody's vacationing and renting these houses. And then part of the what do we want to do? Oh, let's just hire a chef to come cook for us. That's like 50 or 60 dollars a pop a person. And
nice.
yes. And so there's a lot of different things that can be done. It's just you have to have the love, just like with anything.
Yeah,
It's an art form, and you have to enjoy it because it's a lot of hours if you're working at a restaurant with no
for
weekends
sure.
off, no holidays is why I don't do it anymore. And
Hmm.
it was not my intent. I wanted to finish school, and then I went for also business. So I went into my 4 year degree of with business management because I wanted to own my own place.
Sure.
And I kind of wanted to have like a bed and breakfast somewhere in North Carolina
Oh, okay.
with a minimum of at least one ghost because you have to have a niche. Um,
Yeah,
and have it be where the restaurant was also something that the locals can partake in, not just the guests. So we'll see one
yes.
day. Who knows? I'll get there.
If you do, please let me
I
know.
will.
Especially if it's in North Carolina, I'll
Mhm.
definitely come down
Yeah, I
there.
might be like, where can I find a place that's haunted but not overly done? Because work.
Yeah. Like
But
haunted, but not throw pans around in the kitchen
right.
hard.
Otherwise, we're gonna have to have that summoning conversation. Like, listen, if y'all want to stick around here, and maintain it, these are the hours. Just don't break anything, please.
That's funny.
Yeah. Or I can just say, hey, Ryan's coming over. You can have fun with him.
Yeah. Go bother Ryan.
Bye bye, Ryan. Yeah, it's okay. He'll make you a beer. Right. Well, this has been a blast. So before we go, because I'll continue talking to you for hours on end,
Absolutely.
tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you.
Sure. I just finished a trio series beginning with by the author Jay Sterling. It's a baseball romance. Um, it's called The Perfect Game. That series that will be coming out shortly, and my first fantasy romance, which is a shifter why choose romance where I play the smartass vampire, is called Bury Me by Annie Anderson. And that came out today, the 15th of May, actually. And I'm working right now on my first dark mafia romance, but it's a Southern mafia romance.
Mhm.
With the other narrator, Stephanie Nemeth Parker,
Mhm.
and hopefully we'll get to do that live that we were talking about.
Yep.
On I'm lost. What was I? That is called Smokin' Hot by Abby Glines, and that'll be coming out shortly. I'm about to start working on that with her.
Nice.
And the author I worked with on that series by Jay Sterling was M.K. Blackwood, who was really funny.
Yeah,
She
she's
had
great.
me LOLing several times at the one-liners from the other, the female main character. So yeah, that's what I got going on right now.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And I'm sure that by the time this airs, you'll end up having a bunch of other books booked and starting to get published too.
Hope so.
Yeah. Well, that's the goal.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much. This was fun. This is great. Thanks for reaching out for this.
Oh, absolutely. It's been great to chat, and I'm so grateful that you're a part of this year's Audiobook Lovin Series celebrating, and it's been so much fun. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And everyone, thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you've enjoyed this chat as well as the series. Make sure to follow Ryan over on his socials if you have not done so yet, except for TikTok, because he's not on TikTok.
Boo.
You will find his links on the Audiobook Lovin 2024 series page over at Viviana Enchantress of Books website. And until next time, happy listening.
Visit today's episode post to listen to sound clips of some of the books we discussed and enter the month-long giveaway. If you enjoyed the Audiobook Lovin podcast series and you want more, join the Audiobook Lovin podcast Patreon for early access to podcasts, exclusive content like the Would You Rather game and dinner party guests, and additional incentives such as bloopers, graphics, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. Thank you for joining Viviana and her guests for this podcast, and we hope you tune in again as we continue to celebrate Audiobook Month. The Audiobook Lovin Series is hosted by Viviana, the Enchantress of Books. Please make sure to visit the main page linked within the post to learn more about the entire Audiobook Lovin Series and the enchanting author and narrator guests who have joined us over the years. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a review wherever you listened, and please follow us on social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana, the Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you have enjoyed this program.